In fact, be on and off here, the rain through the rest of this week. Elsewhere, again, clear skies leading into a sunny day once more on Wednesday. And again, temperatures will be ticking up further. Still some showery rain, perhaps over northeast Scotland, more particularly across the west coast, maybe a little bit pushing into Northern Ireland later on Wednesday. But for the majority across southern, eastern Scotland, England and Wales, it is a day of sunny spells and building heat. Temperatures by Wednesday more widely into the low to mid-20s, maybe peaking in the London area, 28 degrees. Again, it will be cooler in the northwest. Temperatures are set to rise further as high pressure moves in and then just ambles its way to the east, allowing a plume of even hotter air to push northwards. Temperatures are likely to peak on Friday, over 30 Celsius across the southeast, probably turning cooler through the weekend.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, and the left fights the right, and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. Now, will it take off? Won't it take off? Is it going to happen? Isn't it going to happen? What am I talking about? Of course, the flight to Rwanda, and of course, still as divisive as ever. Many people saying it's shameful, racist, etc., etc. Many people saying it's absolutely the final resort and something that has to happen because of the situation in the channel. Where do you stand on it? The latest on that today is that the challenge to try and stop this happening was rejected, so it is currently on schedule for tomorrow. What's going to happen? Well, we shall see, I'm sure. And get this, do you have children? Do you like to read them stories? Not a problem with that. What do you think, though, to drag queen story time? Yes, it is indeed a thing. It's in the press today because it's been happening over in America, surprise, surprise, but it's also a thing here. Public libraries, schools, should they really be doing drag queen story time? I'm astonished it's even a thing, but where do you stand on it? And the Home Office, you know, it employs about 36,000 people. They were supposed to be having some training on the British Empire, but that training has been delayed over a year now. Why? Because apparently the civil service are trying to make the module less, controversial about our role in the Empire. People are not happy. Who is telling the truth when it comes to British history? Are we all basically a bunch of racist so-and-sos or not? We'll have all that to come, but first, the latest news headlines.
Michelle, thank you. The top stories. As you've been hearing, the Court of Appeal judges today have refused to grant a second bid to stop a deportation flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda tomorrow. A union which represents more than 80% of Border Force staff, as well as the charities Care for Calais and Detention Action, tried to block the first flight. Charity Asylum Aid had issued another challenge in an attempt to temporarily block ministers from removing any asylum seeker to the African country. Around 37 migrants were scheduled to be on the flight tomorrow, but that number has dwindled to just 11. Speaking in the Commons, the Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper told the Minister for Tackling Illegal Migration, Tom Pursglove, the policy goes against UK values.
This isn't just unworkable, unethical and expensive, it is also profoundly un-British and ignores our British values of decency and common sense. It is time to think again.
We haven't seen a credible policy come from the benches opposite to tackle this issue. And I've said many times before that I would be delighted to hear a credible policy from the benches opposite, and I think the British people deserve to hear a credible policy from the benches opposite, but I think we're going to be waiting for a long time.
Well, in other news today, Sinn Féin's Vice President says Conservative Party legislation scrapping parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol would jeopardise jobs. However, DUP leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson praised the UK government, saying the changes will finally remove trade barriers. The government's planning to unilaterally override parts of the current agreement in a new bill, which will aim to relax checks on goods arriving in Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, says the changes are necessary to fix the political deadlock in the region.
What it does is it creates unnecessary barriers on trade east-west. What we can do is fix that. It's not a big deal. We can fix it in such a way as to remove those bureaucratic barriers, but without putting up barriers on trade moving north-south in the island of Ireland as well.
But a number of Conservative MPs have said they're unhappy with the plans, and Labour is warning the measures will break international law. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says the issues can be resolved through negotiation.
They won't be resolved by legislation that breaches international law and that, frankly, will impede the negotiations that, in the end, will be needed to settle this. So the government is going down the wrong track here.
The mother of a boy who's been at the centre of a life support dispute says the family will appeal a High Court ruling that the 12-year-old is already deceased. Archie Battersby suffered brain damage in an incident at home in April. Doctors at the Royal London Hospital say his life support care should now end. But Archie's mother says treatment should continue as her son's heart is still beating.
I'm devastated and extremely disappointed by the judge's ruling. After weeks of fighting a legal battle, when I wanted to be by my little boy's bedside, basing the judgment on an MRI test, which is the first time ever, and that he's likely to be dead, is not good enough.
The Labour leader is being investigated by the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards over potential breaches of rules on earnings and gifts. The investigation centres on a number of late declarations, including multiple failures to register gifts from football teams, payment for legal advice and an advance on a book he's writing. Sir Keir Starmer's insisted he's not broken the MP's code of conduct, and his spokesperson has apologised to the watchdog, saying administrative errors in his office resulted in the late declarations. The actor Kevin Spacey will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday, charged with 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 men. The 62-year-old has also been charged with causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. The Oscar winner previously said he'd voluntarily appear in a British court because he's confident he can prove his innocence. The Metropolitan Police have launched an investigation after a man's body was found on fire in a London park. Firefighters were called to Bellevue Park in West London at around 4 o'clock this morning. Officers are now working to identify the deceased. They say they're treating the death as unexplained. And lastly, the Prime Minister has launched the UK's new post-Brexit food strategy today, which he says will back British farmers and create more jobs. The measures aim to strengthen supply chains and increase domestic production. A leaked draft version of the plans has been heavily criticised. The co-founder of restaurant chain Leon, Henry Dimbleby, led a major review of the country's food industry. He says the new strategy ignores salt and sugar taxes and the government's promises to tackle the nation's obesity epidemic. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Keeping me company here until 7 o'clock tonight. We've got my panel, the writer and broadcaster Dominique Samuels, the leader of the Heritage Party, David Curtin, and we've got a new person tonight. We love somebody new. This is comedian Dana Alexander. Good evening to you three. When someone says that you're a comedian, do you feel like pressure to be hilarious?
Especially when we're talking about deporting people to Rwanda. That's the time to bring jokes up, right?
Yes, well, I don't know. Well, anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
Hope that we won't scare you off and that we'll see you again. Also, you know the drill on Dewbs & Co, don't you? It's not just about us and our thoughts. It's about you at home as well. What's on your mind tonight and what do you think? To the stories that we'll be discussing, you can get in touch with me. Email is gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at gbnews or at Michelle Dewbs. Don't forget, if you haven't already, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can see all the best bits. We've got an app, we've got a podcast, we're on the radio. So wherever you are today, you are very, very welcome. And I will just pause for a second as well and say happy birthday to us at GB News. Can you believe this? We've been around for a year now. And if you look on YouTube, I've got to be honest, you'll see some absolute crackers from the early days, some of which I unfortunately do feature in myself, I've got to be honest, but I've had a good chuckle today at some of those early day bloopers. But I've got to say, I am super proud of how GB News is going, how it's progressing. Let's be honest, there was an awful lot of people that were desperate for GB News to fail. They still are, quite frankly. And a lot of people, by the way, that can't even cope with the fact that GB News is even a thing, how they wish it was not. But I'm very proud of us and what we're doing. We've got a fantastic team in the background. You don't see them, but they work very, very hard. So thank you to all of you. They're in my ear, they're behind my head. Lots of people work very, very hard indeed to make GB News work. And hopefully we will continue to grow. I've got to say as well, we had a little bit of a party yesterday. Was on the karaoke machine. Sue Gray would be jealous, I can tell you. Some of the numbers that I was knocking out. It's Raining Men, Wonderwall. It was all quite good fun. Anyway, so happy birthday to GB News is the point that I was trying to make. Right, let's get into our top story. Oh, by the way, yes, I also forgot then. I'm talking about the back office staff and all the people. I've got to thank you as well, the viewers, by the way. Thank you, because without your support, of course, we would be nothing. So thank you to all of you that watch and listen. We very much enjoy your company. Right, the top story then. In the last few hours, the Court of Appeal has ruled that the government can send asylum seekers to Rwanda. But it seems the number of people due to be on the flight may be down, maybe single figures. 11 was the last number, but I think it'll be dwindling by the hour if the lawyers have their way, of course. You know, Dominique, the lawyers must be having an absolute field day. They must feel that all their Christmases have come at once at the moment. But where do you stand on it all?
I think it begs the question of who is in charge. Is it a democratically elected government who put forward the policy to send asylum seekers to Rwanda to Parliament? It was passed, it was voted through. Or, you know, is our system at the behest of activist lawyers, the UN and the European Court of Human Rights? It's completely inappropriate. And one thing I will say, though, you know, personally for me, it's not necessarily just about smashing the smuggling gangs. They're obviously extremely terrible. They exploit people and they cause deaths. But the primary issue, which, you know, this government was elected on, their manifesto, was that we need to reduce the amount of people that are coming here. That's the problem. and that's why the Rwanda plan exists. And, you know, you wouldn't think so, but the Rwanda plan actually enjoys net support amongst the general public. So more people support it than do not support it.
What are you basing that on?
It was a recent Snap poll that was put out. iNews actually put this out 11 days before the official announcement. More details of the plan were put out, and it received net support. I think it was about 48% to 28% of people supported it and didn't support it.
Dana, do you support it?
I don't support it. I think we have to remember that the Commission, the 1951 Convention, the Brits were a big part of writing these rules. These are international rules. An emergency cannot wait for British legislation. If you are fighting, if you are running for your life, you don't have a choice. Canada, for example, I don't know if you're aware of this, the Second World War turned away a ship of 700 Jewish immigrants during the Second World War, basically, you know, putting them to their death. And they had to make, they made, and you know what?
It's comparable, though.
That's if people are actually fleeing for their lives. And the people we're talking about here are people who've come from France, and France is a safe country, and we have over 8,000
So
people.
why is it that the Ukrainians don't have to
so far this year have come over?
I was skeptical of opening the floodgates to Ukrainians as well, and expecting people to house them, when, as we've seen, they're having to actually move out of the houses that have been put in because they're not getting along with the families, and we simply don't have the facilities to house the rest of the world. We don't.
The thing about the Rwanda scheme is that most people who are going are people who've come from France, and only 11 people are going. So the whole thing is a bit of a farce, and it's a publicity stunt basically. So they're not actually dealing with the problem of illegal immigration properly, which is what we should be doing. We should be pushing the boats from France back to France and stopping the people from coming from France into the country in the first place. Then we wouldn't have this problem of up to 100,000 people coming this year, and already 40,000
Britain takes less than every European country. The people who take the most refugees, it is the who takes less than Britain in Europe?
Bulgaria, Hungary, San Marino.
So we take, what is it, 0.26% of the world's total refugee total. This is a country that, let's keep in mind that 65 countries had to gain independence from this country. So this country has gained a lot from entering into other... It's just the truth. It's just the truth.
This is politically and ideologically motivated.
People are fighting for their lives. It's a humanitarian issue, and that's why 100 people have been stopped. Because,
not when they're coming from France.
You cannot just look at someone in a dinghy and say, you're illegal. Why? Because you're a male, because you're young. Anybody who's making a voyage across the world to save their family are going to send their youngest, their fittest, their strongest. You don't send pregnant women to war.
Where are the families? When are the families going to arrive, though? Because
most of them, a lot of them are in refugee camps across Turkey. A lot of them are in refugee camps across Turkey. Millions of them. In fact, Turkey takes more refugees than anyone else in the world.
Don't talk over each other, because then no one can hear anyone, and that's rubbish. So, Dana, let me just ask you, I think the key point that's coming across, back to what you're saying that people should be able to be safe, and I think everyone would agree with that. Absolutely. And, you know, the pushback that I'm hearing from the panel here is that, well, my question is, I guess, do you differentiate between economic migrants and genuine refugees? Is there a distinction in your mind or not?
That distinction has to be determined by the High Court. And 81% of those people who claimed asylum were granted refugee status. So you have to put these people through the proper processes. This is up till 2022. I was looking it up on the gov.uk site today. So this is as of this year.
I think the vast majority of those were pre-pandemic, though, in terms of acceptance of asylum claims.
You have to let the
can I just finish?
courts decide this.
Pre-pandemic, the vast majority of people that came here actually came here via plane. They didn't come here via water. So I think the channel boat migrants are a completely different kettle of fish, and they should be treated as such.
Because they can't afford a flight?
No, because it's a different business model. And what we're seeing now is people are paying thousands of pounds to people smugglers to come here on a rubber dinghy and surpassing a safe country.
Because there's no safe routes.
For more economic reasons. What are the safe routes that you speak of?
Sorry, a lot of people... So, for example, we did take in, what was it, after what happened in Hong Kong, 100,000 people from...
Didn't agree with that either.
OK, well, you know, the thing is, we'd like to pick and choose who we want to come into the country. When people are in need... I agree, but I don't. When people are in need, people are in need. And we have to remember that people don't necessarily want to be here. They are legitimately running from terrible situations in Syria. Look what happened to the Yazidi women. How many of those women were trafficked? Look what's happening in Afghanistan. Look how many of these young boys are running from the Taliban because they don't want to join. We have to show decency and common sense. And the plan's not working. It didn't work when Israel tried to do it. Right?
I think we would all agree that there's a huge problem with over mass rapid immigration, whether it's legal or illegal, as it is. And what we're talking about mainly here with people going to the Rwanda scheme are people coming across the channel. And we simply can't have the dinghies keep coming, bringing up to 100,000.
So why were 100 blocked?
Because that is going to have a huge effect on the country as a whole. There's not enough houses, there's not enough hospital places, there's not enough school places for people to actually live in. I'm talking about 100,000 potentially coming across the channel this year. So we've got to do something about it to actually signal to people, if you try to come across the channel, there isn't a place for you and you will be sent to Rwanda
and some people have
or something like that.
Some people have accepted that.
Yeah, so...
And they live in forests outside of disbanded Calais. Living horrible lives. And we think that's safe?
France is a safe country, and if they're in France, they should be declaring their asylum status and,
so why is it different for Ukrainians?
Applying for asylum in the first safe country that they come to.
And the neighbouring countries that are near places like Iran, places like Iraq, they should actually be taking, I think, a bit more responsibility.
They are.
And take some more of those migrants in.
You can't exactly be sending people to Iran and Iraq right now. I mean, come on, Curtis. Like Erbil was
Saudi Arabia don't really do that. They don't take their fair share, especially considering that they're more culturally, religiously, and ethnically similar. So I don't think that makes sense. And the reason why up to 100 have been blocked is they're using primarily it's Article 8 of the European Human Rights Act, European Convention of Human Rights,
that Britain authored,
right to a family and private life, and some of these migrants are claiming that they're victims of modern slavery, and that was a law that Theresa May brought in, which is solely designed to block, basically, them leaving the UK. I don't think it's entirely crazy to suggest that some of these laws that a lot of terrorists have benefited from, which has made them unable to leave the UK, I don't think it's crazy to suggest that some of these laws are taken advantage of by these people. And that's why I would personally suggest that we do need new legislation and we do need to review the involvement of the UN and the European courts and the European Convention of Human Rights on our immigration system. I'm sorry, we're a sovereign nation and we should be able to decide who comes in and out.
Are you not a daughter? We're all of us, I should just note, we're all daughters and sons of immigrants.
And this is
here.
the thing, though. I have nothing in common with someone from Iran or someone from Iraq.
And why do you figure that?
I have nothing in common with
My
them.
boyfriend's from Iran.
My granddad came here from Jamaica. His parents were invited. His parents paid for all 9 children to come over here. They worked hard, bought a house, completely different context. That doesn't mean just because I happen to be an ethnic minority that I think that we should open the floodgates.
No, but I think you have to address what's happened. Look what happened with the whole Windrush scandal. I'm sorry.
Not the same.
Yes, it is. Immigrants out. That is the message. And that's who the Tory is. That's the base they're playing to.
But Dana, can I just correct you here? Well, not correct you because it's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But when you're saying, oh, we've got this sentiment where it's immigrants out, immigrants not welcome, I've got to push back on you because actually, when there was the opportunity for the great British people to help people that were genuinely in need in Ukraine, as we've just been discussing, many people, absolutely in their droves, put their hand up and said, let me help you. I want to help you if you're in distress.
That's when we get into the xenophobia.
But
it just seems like there's 2 different rules if you're coming from Afghanistan and Syria versus whether or not you're coming from the Ukraine. We don't demand that Ukrainians stay in Poland because that's the first safe country, do we?
Right.
So why are the rules different for them?
In practice,
let me ask you this. Right. Sorry, because I need to just get to the root of what you're saying. Because you're saying there's these 2 different systems. Basically, what you're trying to say, I don't think you're trying to say. You're saying it clearly. What you're suggesting is because Ukrainians are white, then you're allowed in. But if you're brown or black or whatever, then we've got a problem with you. That's what you're suggesting, isn't it?
I am suggesting that there is some xenophobia when it comes to how refugees are treated in this country, 100%.
Are you seriously suggesting that if there was a country that had predominantly white people and 10,000 white people this year alone was getting on rubber dinghies and randomly turning up in England, crossing the Channel into England, you're telling me that you think that the British government would just say, hey, you, my friend, you're white.
That's not what I said at all. That's not what I said at all.
No, I'm asking you.
No, that's not what I said. Well, because if you look at a lot of the guys that are coming over, a lot of them are coming from places like, what do you call it again? Doesn't matter.
France.
Not France. I'm talking about Eastern Europe.
What you've said
and certain
is
countries like Albania, exactly. So some people would say that Albanians are white. Some people would say that they are not white, right? And I think it comes down to religion.
White people was crossing the channel in dinghies. You think that those 10,000 white people will be treated differently?
I think if 10,000 Ukrainians were on that dinghy, I think they would be treated completely different, 100%.
I didn't think so at all. I think what you've said is an appalling slur on this country, because we welcomed 20 to 30,000 people from Uganda, Ugandan Asians, when Idi Amin was in power, and they were in trouble. So we have
and would have deported people like my grandfather, who was recruited from his country.
I've just told you and given you evidence that we are not xenophobic, and then you're just repeating the same accusation at all. That is simply not true. This is one of the least racist countries in the world. This country welcomes genuine asylum seekers and genuine refugees. But I'm sorry, people coming in a dinghy from France who are mostly economic migrants are not genuine asylum seekers.
You can assess that. You're not a high court.
Well,
and when the high court is assessing it, they're finding that 81% of them are.
Then they can't hear them.
Sorry, you're not the high court. When the high court are assessing them, they're determining that 81% of them do have legal rights.
Well, everyone in the country is entitled to an opinion.
The High Court, it's not. The High Court doesn't have an opinion. The High Court has the say.
The High Court has said that people can go on the flight to Rwanda. So, I think they would agree with me and most people in the country.
Dana, they haven't. Do you think there's a potential situation that people are playing the system?
Yes, of course. Everybody plays. There's no such thing as a system that will not be taken advantage of.
And that's what's happening.
No, I don't think you can. I don't think you can determine that by just determining because they're in a dinghy that they must be here. They're only economic migrants. A lot of these guys are coming from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran. There are serious problems in this country. Yes, because look where we're situated. Look where we're situated. They're not in school learning French. They're not in school learning French. They're not in school learning French in Iraq, Iran. Would you like to, let's say something, God forbid, happens to England, right? And they said, sorry, you can't go back to your family in Jamaica. You have to stop off in X, Y, Z country. You don't speak the language. You have no connections there. Come on.
If what you're suggesting is that people are coming here because they speak the language, why does this country spend so much money on translation services then?
No, some of them speak the language. Some of them don't speak the language. You know what? People speak varying degrees of English. So people who come here, they may have taken English in school for 2 years, 3 years, versus 0 years in French, 0 years in Spanish. They may have family members. They may have no communities that are bigger.
That doesn't mean they're going to be proficient in the language in order to operate in society properly.
And that doesn't mean they're not.
And that is the problem. But it's also an issue of social cohesion as well. And I think that, we have to just look at the realities.
Look at the reality of a lot of these refugees speak 3 and 4 languages.
It's responsibility to house the rest of the world. And the fact of the matter is, it's
everyone's responsibility.
It's not middle-class posh people that are going to be housed with these people in these communities. The vast majority of these people are placed in poor places in like the Northeast. There are 17 times more asylum seekers in the Northeast than there are the South. So
that's a matter of how they get it done.
That's a matter of the reality of how.
That's a matter of how it operates.
The reality is they're going to be placed with people that are already poor
because they choose to do this.
And that's why when you go into these areas, you see there's no social cohesion. You basically feel like you're in a different country, and that's where the division begins. People want to cut immigration, and that needs to be listened to.
And they wanted to cut immigration when our grandparents came here too. So hey,
the thing is, we are one of the most densely populated countries in the world for a large country, and that is really a big problem.
Yeah.
I think there's not enough houses. There's simply not enough houses
being built
to put people in. Well, we can't.
How much of the land on this?
We can't build. We can't build more houses because there simply isn't the place to build houses because we need the land for farming and for countryside.
90%.
We are, as I said, one of the most densely populated countries in the world, especially in Europe. We simply don't have the places for that. And what we've got is a town like Linton under Roos in North Yorkshire. We all know the story. The government wants to put 1,500, mostly military-aged men who have come across the channel, into an old army base in a village of 500 people. The people simply can't cope with that, and that's the situation.
That's a problem of application.
Up and down the country, and it's simply there is no more room. So the kindest thing to do would be to say, well, you can't come to this country. It's better to go to Rwanda or stay in France in a place where you can look after you better.
Out of time. I can tell you, my inbox is on fire. I say this pretty much every day, but it really is. You guys, your opinions are coming in thick and fast. But before I move from the panel and to you guys at home, I just want to ask Dana a quick question. If this country is so basically awfully racist and anti-immigrant, why is this Rwanda policy essentially a one-for-one then? Because what we're saying is if we send someone to Rwanda, we will accept a genuine refugee, someone that needs a safe haven in the UK. It's a one-for-one.
I haven't seen anything that suggests that that has been agreed upon.
Well,
Section 16 of the memorandum exactly says that, resettlement of vulnerable refugees. The participants will make arrangements for the United Kingdom to resettle a portion of Rwanda's most vulnerable
Well, I mean, if we're only sending 9, if we're only sending 11, hey, it's not really that big a deal, is it?
But you're ignoring my point, because it's not about the volume, it's about the principle. What you're saying is that this country is basically a racist...
No, that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. I didn't say, did I call this country a racist? Did I call this? There is elements of racism within this country. That is a fact.
But you're saying it's very anti-immigration.
There are a lot of anti-immigration sentiments. When I came here as a Canadian immigrant, my mother is British.
Just hear me.
UKIP, BNP. Come on now, the Reclaim Party. Britain First. How many different parties do you need to communicate to people?
Because you're not answering my question. You're going all around the houses. My question to you is, if we're so anti-immigrants, why is this...
Elements of this country are. Not everybody.
The Home Office.
Parts of the Home Office, yes.
If they're so anti-immigrant, why is the Rwandan plan a one-for-one?
Well, I hope that happens. I don't know that it will.
But that is the policy.
Is it that the policy? Well, then that's great. But I don't think they're going to get any kind of numbers that it's going to be some kind of...
But it's not about the numbers. It's about the sentiment, the concept.
So you think that they're actually going to be sending thousands of people over to Rwanda and then just taking Rwandan refugees in the thousands?
That's the deal.
Let's see if that happens. Let's see if that happens.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen at home, you have been very much in touch. You still are. I want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to take a quick break, actually, and I'm going to pull out some of your contacts. But let me know what you think to that. GBViews at gbnews.uk. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to be reading out some of your thoughts. You're not really sitting on the fence, I've got to say. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
What do you expect?
What do you mean?
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight at my panel, writer and broadcaster Dominique Samuels, the leader of the Heritage Party, David Curtin, and a new face tonight, comedian Dana Alexander. I can tell you, though, there wasn't much laughing going on in that last segment. If you just missed that, we were talking about the flights over to Rwanda. Are they a good thing? Are they not? Are they even going to happen, by the way? You guys, lots and lots and lots of you getting in touch about that. I have to say, to summarise, most of you are in favour of the Rwanda policy as a last resort. many people are saying, when it comes to the concept of xenophobia, etc., many people are saying, well, if we were so racist or xenophobic, etc., why would so many people want to come to this country? I've got to say, I think that's an interesting question. Jenny says, you're comparing Ukrainians and the situation in the Channel. Ukrainians follow the correct process and have to apply for visas to be allowed into the UK. Lots of sentiments here saying, why aren't we working more with the French to try and stop people actually even making that crossing in the first place? I think I would say back to that I think they've tried. I think people have tried to engage with the French. I think a lot of money actually has been paid to the French, and it's not really made a jot of difference, I have to say. But, crikey, Mikey, you guys are on fire tonight. That is a topic that has got you talking. I really cannot read out a fraction of the emails, or else I'd be here for the next 6 weeks trying to read them all out, I can tell you. But I appreciate your engagement. Strong feelings, I've got to say. Right, I was just about to say moving on, but something tells me this one will split the panel as well, because after the Windrush scandal, of course, we'll all be familiar with that by now, the Home Office committed to educating its staff about Britain's colonial past. It's paid £600,000 to Cardiff University to develop an online course. But the civil servants are now being accused of wanting to sanitise Britain's past so that its staff don't feel browbeaten. So, where do I even start? I'm going to start with you on this one, Dana. Where do you sit on this? I mean, the accusation pretty much basically is that this body, they've gone off, they've done what they've been paid to do, which is to do a thorough job in presenting British history. What the pushback then is that apparently the civil service haven't liked what they've heard, and they're trying to browbeat them basically into modifying this content so that it's not as, some would say, accurate as it should be. Others would say unnecessarily derogatory. Where do you stand on it?
Well, I think we can look back to the Windrush situation, and there was a lot of faults when it came to them just not understanding the situation generally. I think it's really interesting to consider that we're using the word sanitize, right? Because that would suggest that something is dirty. There is a deep colonial history in this country, and I think if you're going to service the people that come from that history, you need to know about it. And I think what we really need to be aware of is what's the truth. If they're too browbeaten to hear it, how do you think the people, living it feel?
I think that we do need to be balanced. I think that we need to have an accurate picture of history. But I think when it comes to the topic of empire and colonialism, it can get swallowed up by really a left-wing ideological agenda that seeks to paint this country's history as wholly negative. And I think with empire and colonialism, there were some awful things that happened, completely evil, and I completely accept that. But at the same time, I just worry that with these, pushes to paint this country as evil, it's sort of a way to guilt trip staff at the Home Office to basically having sort of a bias towards immigrants. I think if you are an illegal immigrant or you've overstayed your visa, etc., then, you should be dealt with accordingly. I don't think guilt over history should colour that.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say on top of that as well is I don't even know why this course needs to be done in the Home Office. I mean, the Windrush so-called scandal has been weaponised, and I think the equality, diversity, inclusion industry are going to make loads and loads of money out of presenting this course to the Home Office, woke academics in woke universities, and they're going to be trotting out all the tropes of, like, Britain is racist, the Home Office is institutionally racist.
Scandal. It was not a so-called scandal. It was
it was a scandal for the 32 people who were actually sent back and shouldn't have been sent back and deported. There's only a very, very small number of people over a 16-year period. So, yes, it was a scandal, but I think it's been blown up to be presented as way, way more and affecting way, way more people than it actually did. Yes, those 32 people, were treated badly, but now this is being weaponised and to beat us, our country and the Home Office staff over the head with the idea of critical race theory and this country is racist.
No.
I'm conscious that people are listening and not necessarily just watching. So if you are listening and not watching, you won't be able to see what Dana is doing. The pen went down, their head was getting shaken. You're not happy, are you, Dana? What's going on?
Left-wing agenda, far left, woke, blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is history is often written by the victors. If you were to look at the situation with Christopher Columbus, for example, he discovered America. Can you really discover somewhere that already has millions of people living on it? Funny enough, he didn't discover America. He was lost looking for India, right? We still call people in the West Indies, instead of actually admitting that this guy was wrong, we'll tell the false story and we'll keep that narrative going just to satisfy our own egos.
Right.
Tell the truth.
I think
Tell the truth.
You're saying
Tell the
is
truth.
a direct example of why certain people are suspicious of people like you wanting to tell the story.
People like me.
Because
People like me.
That you have. It seems that you have an axe to grind.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher
History has been revised. That's not exactly. Sorry. If someone were to come, I'm sorry. If someone were to show up on someone's shores where 1 million people were living and said, in today's politics, I discovered this place. And somehow these people, they know very little of their history before colonialists came. Come on now, it's not a far left agenda. You know what I noticed you're not worried about is the truth. If the module tells the truth, let them tell the truth, no matter how ugly it is, because living the truth is equally or more ugly,
The suspicion is the story isn't going to be told through a neutral
But then you have to fact check.
It's
simple. Fact checked
It's going to be motivated by people like you who are often
No,
on the
not
left,
people like
and
me. It's not people like me.
Have an axe to grind.
These are civil servants have an axe to grind? Civil servants have an axe to grind? Okay. Well, then go in and give some balance then, because what you can't do is refute what they've written, and that's the point.
Let's have a course about British history that tells all the wonderful things about our country.
There's many wonderful things.
We've got Magna Carta, we've got the Bill of Rights, we've got William Wilberforce, who actually abolished slavery in the British Empire.
The 1951 Refugee Convention Act.
If you let me finish, William Wilberforce abolished slavery, and then we spent most of the 19th century going around the world getting other countries to abolish slavery as well. The defeat of the Nazis, the defeat of communism at the end of the Cold War, and so on. We've got a fantastic history. But it seems like this course is just going to be written by people in the diversity industry who are going to bash us over the head again. And I think it's really good that the people in charge are saying, well, look, let's not have a course which is going to be bashing us over the head, which is going to demoralise everybody. Yeah, OK, we'll need to talk about the bad things in our history, but let's talk about all the amazing good things, which far, far outweigh all the bad things in our history as well, and teach the Home Office staff that.
Have a course that tells the truth. Patting yourself on the back isn't going to get you any further. Period.
But, I find this truth word quite an interesting one, because it used to be the case that the truth was just the truth, and it was just undeniable. It was a facts-based truth, full stop. I do think, though, that this word truth now, it means very different things to different
Fake news, yes, we've gone through all of this,
no,
right?
That's not, no. I don't mean fake news, because this is not related to this topic, but it is related to the matter of truth, for example. You used to have a truth which was, again, don't shout at me at home, because I know I'm kind of going off topic, but it used to be things like a woman is an adult female, a woman has a vagina and a man has a penis. That used to be universally accepted as truth. Fast forward to 2022 now, that truth is contested. It's bonkers. So when you say stick to the truth and we'll all be OK, the only thing I'd push back on that is truth seems to vary depending on who it is that's telling it.
Well, a trans woman is a woman, if that's what you want me to get to.
The truth is
a trans woman is a trans woman. The truth is a trans woman is a trans woman. A trans woman is a trans woman. Sorry.
That's nonsense.
A trans woman is a trans woman.
No. Talk about truth and then talk about nonsense.
Talk about political agenda. Nobody started asking about whether or not a woman was a woman until the last 2 years, because you know what it is? It's fire. It's good things that we can get fired up on a right-wing station, because this never used to be an issue.
You've just exposed yourself there.
I haven't.
If you want to talk about truth, you saying that a trans woman...
What in this report is a lie.
No one ever used to say.
A trans woman is a trans woman. And you know what I put them under?
Is really...
Okay. Well, until you actually have any serious points that this commission has brought up that you can refute, let's talk about that.
But we don't
Instead
know.
of just saying, these civil servants have a leftist agenda. They're going to start... No. Tell the truth about the history.
Do you know what
there's been?
Don't speak over each other, you two.
Let's tell all the good things about our nation, and then we can be proud of our nation. And then the staff can do their good jobs with being encouraged about their nationality and what they're doing.
Right, there you go. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I was going to say I'll be talking about something that's not going to spark the panels much, but unfortunately I don't think that is going to be the case. We'll be talking about drag queen story time. Do you have kids? Would that be your kind of thing if you did? We'll have that in a couple of minutes. I'll see you then.
Coming up on Dan Woodson Tonight with me, Patrick Christys, are the Freedom Convoys finally about to have their names cleared in a massive blow for COVID authoritarian Justin Trudeau? Their spokesperson joins me as the Canadian establishment tries to repair the damage of their smear campaign. Plus, there's unfiltered opinion from Rakib Ehsan and positive Professor Carol Sikora. And I'll break down the top headlines of the day with my superstar panel, Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit MEP and political commentator Belinda de Lucy. That's Dan Woodson Tonight, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m, right here on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Woodson. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Woodson Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry. Lots of nice messages coming on, by the way, wishing us happy birthday. Maureen says, GB News is the best thing since sliced bread, Michelle. That's nice, Maureen. Thank you. Coming up at 7 o'clock tonight is Nigel Farage. Nigel, good evening to you. What's coming up on your show?
Michelle, good evening. Well, it's a funny one, isn't it? A government with a majority of 80 wanted to send 130 people to Rwanda tomorrow. That number is now down to single figures. I doubt the flight will even go. We're going to debate who runs the country. Is it you, the voters, that are in charge, or is it judges that make the big decisions? We'll look at how much money Russia has made out of increased energy prices. And joining me on Talking Pints, the biggest gossip monger in the whole of Westminster, Andrew Pearce of the Daily Mail.
Looking forward to that. We'll see you, 15 minutes time now, I think it is, Nigel. See you then. Right, back to this show. Lots of you, by the way, are still getting in touch on the whole kind of immigration Rwanda topic, which we started the programme with. Lots of you saying, asking the question, it's the same question that's coming through thick and fast. If people are desperate for their lives and want to be safe, etc., why do they do things like throw away their ID, their passports and stuff? I've got to say, I don't know. I've pondered on that myself. It's very bizarre if you ask me. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Our final topic of the day, drag queens. Is it your thing? Have you been to see them? I have. I think they're absolutely hilarious. I've got to say, they make me chuckle. Nothing wrong with a nice drag event going off, having a few drinks, enjoying the performance. It's good fun. That's what I say. But to me, I have to be honest, it's adult fun. It's an adult thing. So why then do we have something called Drag Queen Story Time, where drag queens have been going into schools and public libraries and reading stories to children as young as 3? Drag Queen Story Hour started in the US and has now even been in UK primary schools. Parents have signed a petition to stop the organisation, saying it breaks safeguarding principles in their view. What do you think to this? David, I'll start with you on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Like, drag queens are good fun for adults, but certainly shouldn't be for kids and shouldn't be presented to children in schools or in libraries. And it goes along with a whole sort of queering the curriculum agenda, this LGBTQ queering agenda. And the relationships and sex education's been introduced into England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. And they're wanting to bring this kind of thing into schools, not just secondary schools, but primary schools and to the youngest possible ages. And I've seen some horrendous things in some of these things which are going on in libraries and have been in this country, not just the United States, but here, for many, many years. I think some people might have seen the picture of the monkey in front of 4 or 5-year-old kids in a library in London with a big protrusion coming out of his front. You know, I'm not going to be explicit about that, but I mean, that's the sort of thing which is highly sexualising, and it shouldn't be, you shouldn't even consider presenting something like that to children. They need to be safeguarded.
So, Dana, you know, drag, not a problem. Fill your boots if that's your thing. If you want to do it, watch it, enjoy it. Who cares? Whatever, each their own. Specifically, though, when it comes to children and the need for or the desire for a drag queen story time for kids, where do you stand on that?
Well, I think we have to look at what is the drag queen actually doing. Are they, like, for example, the example that you just used with the protrusion, I think that's probably an independent incident that's not happening frequently.
No, it's happened so many
happening
times.
a lot. Well,
how many times?
There was... Well, I'll let you finish.
OK, so basically what drag is an acronym for dressed as a girl. If you look at Shakespearean times, all female parts were played by men. If you go to your pantomime every single Christmas, the pantomime dame is generally played by men. If you look at some of the most popular shows in this country, Mrs. Brown's Boys, look at the success of Medea. We can get into Big Mama's House. So drag isn't anything that's new. What seems to be a problem is when queer people are doing drag, then all of a sudden there seems to be this implied sexual connotation that I don't see there. I've watched a few drag time story hours on YouTube, and I've seen nothing but a drag queen literally reading a story. And I mean, I think 200K, that's probably a little bit exorbitant. They're getting some pretty high-class drag queens in there. But I'm sorry, I'm a comedian that does all types of material. I sometimes perform in a church, and you know what I do? I tone down the material. I don't think that it would be happening if OK.
I mean, this...
Can I just... Yeah, the idea that a parent taking their child along to a drag event, the idea
What's wrong with drag queens?
Is absolutely despicable. And I
Why?
think parents like that need investigating. Drag queens are fine, but it's an adult theme that has no place around.
It's not an adult
children.
theme at a children's storybook.
Dominique finish.
If we want to talk about the sexual connotations that are ever present in these so-called drag queen story hours and events that involve children, there was one in Dallas named a Drag Your Kids to Pride event where the drag queens were accepting dollar bills from children, and in the background there was a sign that read, "It's not gonna lick itself." There was a drag queen story hour in Scotland. What did we find? The drag queen was called Flowjob. I think we all know what that means. And then once parents actually found Flowjob's Instagram, you found a host of sexually explicit and suggestive images. In 2019, in Houston, there was a drag queen story hour hosted at a public library. They actually admitted that one of the story timers was a registered sex offender. At another drag queen story hour, one of the drag queens accidentally exposed their genitals to a group of children. In England, they feature things like twerking, teaching children to dance suggestively. This has got nothing to do with being anti-queer, and I think it's pretty homophobic to suggest that being gay or queer is about presenting overly and sexually suggestive caricatures of women.
Not all
children.
drag queens are
Those
sexually
two things-
suggestive.
Well, the examples that I've just given you demonstrate that these sexual themes
Those are
involving
You're
children.
right, and I'll tell you,
Of pride,
inappropriate
diversity,
incidents
and
happen,
inclusivity, and it's wrong.
You know what? Inappropriate incidents happen all the time, and it's unfortunate.
It's wrong.
Well, look at Jimmy Savile.
It's wrong.
Yeah, well,
It's completely wrong. But what I'm
wrong.
saying to you is it's not because it's drag. It's because they're human beings, and these incidents you can go online.
It's because drag queen
sorry,
shows
but there's
are sexually suggestive.
The
You
ones-
look at the outfits with the protruding overly dramatized caricatures of women.
First of all, you shouldn't be watching RuPaul's Drag Race if you're a kid, first of all. I don't think the advisory warning is for all ages on RuPaul's Drag Race. No, because I'm sorry, comedians, so what? Comedians, just because a comedian's going to tell a dirty joke over here, you're going to assume that they're going to do the same thing with children? I don't think that's being fair.
Why has that happened, though?
Oh, because people slip up. Problems happen. And guess what? They happen when drag queens are not in the classroom as well. I don't know if you know about that.
Around children, presenting adult themes to them are
that is not
suspect.
How is reading a child's book an adult theme?
But
hang on,
needs investigating.
Dana, why is it necessary?
Why is it necessary? I'll tell you why. It's about inclusion, right?
Inclusion of what?
I'm sorry, there are 1.4 million people who identify as lesbian, gay, trans. I'm sure you're familiar with Section 28 when they were like, we're not going to promote any...
What does that have to do with drag queens in schools?
Because people need to feel like they are a part of society and that they are represented.
In what way is an overly dramatised caricature of women representative of gay or lesbian people? That suggested in itself is quite homophobic.
Leave this kind of sexualisation away from children. Whatever people are as adults, children are not sexual in primary schools.
What you're doing is suggesting that all drag queens are sexual. That's not true.
Well, a lot of them are, and a lot of them going into schools are, and it's been done without parental consent as well, and that's a terrible thing.
Because the suggestion is that the drag queen is somehow inherently inappropriate?
Absolutely, for children of a young age.
I disagree.
Because what the agenda is the whole transgender agenda is to confuse children about whether they're boys or girls. A lot of the number of children who are presenting with gender dysphoria.
So no one's ever been in drag in a children's television program?
The number of children who are presenting with gender dysphoria has gone up over 8,000% over the last decade. And we're talking about drag queens going into the very youngest of children and primary school and with sexualised materials. You mentioned children's books. A lot of them these days are not nice children's books like Paddington Bear and Enid Blyton. They're things that are...
Enid Blyton? What do you mean, the three gollywogs? You think that's a pleasant book? What were the names of those gollywogs? You can't even say it on this channel.
The number of... A lot of the books going in... A lot of the books, if I can finish, please, you know...
Right, guys.
OK, Michelle, go.
Over each other, because everyone
Enid Blyton,
everyone at home's ears will be hurting.
Gollywoggy and who? Those were the names of the three gollywogs, Enid Blyton. But come on, you think that's beautiful? You think that's good literature for kids? Give me a break.
Hang on, Dana, don't take this off track, because we're not talking about Enid Blyton. We're talking about...
He was.
I was asking you, why is it necessary? Because I'm genuinely trying to understand, because to me, it's entirely unnecessary to do this with children.
Well, I think at the end of this article, they do talk about how 50 trans or gender non-conforming people were actually met with violence. Because I think what happens is when you don't... A lot of people
Stay
who live...
away from people's kids. You don't need to...
Sorry, the implication that somebody, because they're trans, that they're some kind of a child molester is actually the reason why certain people are being sued right now. Sorry.
Why does this...
That's discrimination.
Why does there seem to be such an ideological drive from this movement to be around people's kids? Leave them alone.
Oh, my God. Give me a break. Kids are part of the world. Drag queens are part of the world. They're not these scary people that you would like to paint as someone who's going to molest your kid in the toilet. It's just not true, and that's why there's so much violence against them.
Sexualising children.
Nobody's sexualizing children. They are reading a book.
Several examples. Let me give you an example.
Give me a break.
Judge in Houston headed organisations who sponsored Drag Queen Story Hour. He was also arrested for harbouring child abuse images. There is...
And this happens in classrooms where there are no drag queens as well. These are independent incidents, and it's not there because they're drag queens.
Dangerous. This
Give me a break.
Utopia that you live in.
It's not a utopia that I live in. These instances happen in the heterosexual... sorry, they do.
Right, last question, very, very briefly. I've only got about 20 seconds left, Dana. Are you not concerned about the amount of children that are now struggling with their gender identity?
11-year-old drag queens.
Hang on. Are you not concerned about that?
I'm concerned about trans people who are closeted and feel so ashamed in this world because they don't see any representation of themselves, and often have higher numbers of suicide, self-harming, keeping themselves away from society. They are part of our society, and I'm sorry, the implication that a drag queen is inherently sexual or that they're going to do something with your kids is bigoted.
Children are not trans and should not be indoctrinated into this trans ideology and confused. That's what causes a lot of the
trans ideology. It's not an ideology.
They need to be protected
Gender dysphoria is medically recognized.
Right. Okay, Durkee. You guys, I hope you've enjoyed your tea and the debates. Thank you very much to my panel. That is unfortunately all we've got time for. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dana, as well. New face. Always like a new face on Dewbs and Kerr. Thank you. at home for your company. Have a fantastic evening, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Temperatures ticking up through the rest of this week. Some strong June sunshine. It's not going to be blue skies everywhere, however, always more cloud across the northwest with a few showers, most particularly across western Scotland, where we'll keep some showers going overnight. A sprinkling of showers over southern Scotland this evening. They'll fade away, so for most it's a dry night and we should see lengthy clear spells, allowing it actually to turn quite cool across England and Wales. Temperatures down into single figures, but we'll see temperatures rising with the sunshine during tomorrow.